Very briefly, can I go back to the discussion we were having earlier about what would happen in practice at Dover-Calais? You made the point that a third of the trucks that bring food into the UK go back empty to the EU, and the problem would be they'd be stuck in the queue in Dover with all the other trucks. This is no doubt a rather naive question, but couldn't you just introduce an empty lorry lane at Dover so they could bypass the queue, get straight on the ferry and go back?
So it's a good question, and it is one that, again, we were with the Department for Transport trying to explore the potential for doing Brexit readiness checks, really, and Brexit readiness checks would on lorries that were queuing to go out to Europe to check, did they have the correct documentation or were they empty? And ensuring then that the queues enabled the correct trucks with the correct documentation or empty were prioritised for going to Dover and Eurotunnel. So I know that work is underway to try to put in place those Brexit readiness checks to enable that to happen. The problem is Brexit readiness checks happen either can happen at Manston Airport, or they can happen while trucks are queuing, but there are no other locations where you can do those checks. Now, Manston Airport is only going to be full of trucks if the queues have already built up, and we can only do checks on trucks on the M20 if it's completely stationary. So there's a you do the checks if the trucks are stationary, you don't do them if it's flowing. But that work is underway to try and enable that to happen.
I think you need also to perhaps ask that question of the Port of Dover, because I think they were always very clear that there just simply wasn't the physical space to provide for that kind of fast-track arrangement. Right. You would then, of course, have the argument as to whether or not a truckload of British exports were in fact more valuable and should be prioritised over an empty returning foreign truck. That's going to get you into a very difficult set of decisions, isn't it?
And you made the point that once the 300 spaces at Calais are full, would Calais then say that no more ferries could come in until there were enough spaces?
Well, it was our assumption that the ferries would only carry across trucks if they could see that they were going to be able to be discharged off the ferry, because otherwise the ferry is just stuck there. So I'm sure these things will be a natural dialogue between the carriers and the ports. But that's precisely what the impact would be.
And that was based on the experience when Calais was brought to effectively a halt by industrial action in the summer of 2015. The ferries simply stopped running because they couldn't get access to the port, and of course it's unsafe to leave a ferry moored off of Calais in the Straits of Dover.
And obviously, I mean, Calais and French officials, they were very clear they didn't want that to happen. They would be trying to find ways of mitigating that, and were very keen for us to find ways of trying to almost prevent trucks that weren't ready from arriving in France, so we didn't hit that situation, but that's what we were preparing for.
Thank you very much.